right over here, please.
All right, good afternoon, staff and students. Please settle in. Lots to cover today. All right. Thank you for being here. This is something that has stemmed. Mr. Bauer and I have been talking about this since October. You've gone through a survey wondering about vaping, juuling, all that kind of stuff. You guys remember taking that through the county way back in November? Okay? This stems way back from there. We are very, very fortunate to have someone who's going to come here today and talk to us about the choices that we make and the impact that they have on our lives. Good, bad, indifferent, and what to do. And he's got some excellent information, and he's got some really, he's not messing around. He's going to tell us like it is. Okay? So those of you who might be in middle school, be ready. Those of you in high school, be ready. Okay? Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brian Cole.
Y'all mind getting a picture with me? No. Always got to be one. All right, thank you. So I just want to start out saying that I'm beat tired, man. I didn't hardly get a wink of sleep last night, and no, it wasn't because I was excited to come and talk to you guys.
Oh.
I've been praising all night because when I was leaving the church yesterday, on my way home last night, I got a text message from a police officer friend of mine in Altoona. He said, "Did you hear?" I'm like, "Hear what?" "They found Jamie alive." They found Jamie alive. That's a praise. Now, I don't know Jamie. Jamie's not part of my family. She ain't in the same county I am. I just know one thing. Jamie's a human being. A young human being. And I know we don't need to talk about respect in here today. Respect me and I'll respect y'all, but I will call you out if you disrespect me. Okay? I think what I have to say is important. I got excited and couldn't sleep all night because she's a human being. And something dramatic happened in her life. And her parents were taken from her. She was abducted, and after a month, man, most people don't live through that. So it got me excited enough because a human being got messed with. And it got me excited all night that I couldn't even sleep. I was driving down here trying to keep my eyes open because I was so excited that this girl got found. And that's how every human being that we meet, know, or even see on social media in our lives should impact us. When we have the love and care for other human beings that we should have. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there was a little 13-year-old boy who committed suicide in Eau Claire this week because of bullying. And it breaks my heart because it's happening often, way too much. In the last 2 months, we've had 2 9-year-old girls commit suicide because of bullying. And because they ain't in front of us and they ain't from our town and we don't know them, it doesn't impact us until it happens in our own community. And then, that's a wake-up call for some people. So I just wanted to start out by praising that Jamie got found. She's going to have a heck of a road ahead of her with emotional healing. No 13-year-old should have to go through anything like that. But I want to start by asking some questions. So if this question applies to you, I want you to stand up. If you have somebody who is your immediate family, extended family, or a close friend who's committed suicide, stand up. If you have immediate family, close family, or a close friend who is in the process of talking about suicide or has talked about suicide, stand up right now. That's talking about it right now. I want you to look around you. Just asking one question. This is a traumatic experience in people's lives. So I want you guys who stood up to sit down and everybody else stand up. If you have an immediate family member, extended family member, or close friend who was or is a drug or alcohol addict, sit down. If you have immediate family, close family, or a close friend who's been in jail, prison, probation, parole, on the bracelet, was or is, sit down. I want you to look around you with these three questions. Just how few are still standing. And this is probably one of the schools where I still had the most students standing up after just those three questions. You can sit down. Thank you. My point in doing this is to show you that you guys as young lives, man, you're already going through a lot of stuff in life. Growing up, boyfriends, girlfriends, school, drama at home, all that other stuff. You shouldn't have to be going through this other stuff that we just talked about. And how are you dealing with it? Because that's some trauma in life. And this is one of the problems. You're not dealing with it. And I'm gonna start a little bit here about how it all started for me, and some of you guys may be in that situation right now. But I'm here today, but like they said, this has been in the makings for a long time. It wasn't just something because there's some drama happening in the school I got brought in. And I'm not here to tell you don't do drugs, because you already know not to do drugs. What I am here to tell you is that I want to show you reality. I want to show you reality. I want you to see how fast your choices can get taken away from you by one stupid mistake. And I know what I'm talking about because I've been there. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking about some suit and tie guy coming up in here and saying, don't do this and don't do that. I've never been involved with nothing in my life. I'm speaking on what I've been through. Speaking from living that lifestyle for 33 years. I didn't come to rip up phone books and do feats of strength, although I could impress you with about 41-handers. I didn't come to tell you jokes and do illusions. I came to give you a dose of reality. Because whether I know you or not, like Jamie, I love each and every one of you and I care. And I don't want to see you heading down the road I went down. And so many of my friends went down. And when I say my friends, I look back on my pictures of these so-called people that were in my lives, and most of them are dead or spending the rest of their life in prison, or their minds are gone from the drugs. So what I have to say is important. It's all dealing with choices and decisions that we make. Because decisions and the choices we make is what runs our future. It impacts our future. You guys make hundreds of little choices each and every day. Should I sit over here? Should I sit over there? Should I sit with them? Should I say this? Should I say that? And all those little choices eventually make you who you are. And all those little choices eventually make you a good person or a bad person. And let's check this out. Once you make one bad choice, it makes it just a little bit easier the next time to make another bad choice. And then you make that other bad choice and it makes it, see what I'm saying? And pretty soon the choices get taken away from you. That's where addiction is. You don't have a choice no more. And it all stems from those choices you made before that. So please listen to what I have to say, man. Because I want to see each and every one of you succeed in life. It's already hard living the life that most of you guys got and dealing with the struggles in school and family and everything else in life. My story, and I want to tell you one other thing before I get going. Probably some of you in here are like, wow, why would we listen to this guy? It ain't like we're going to end up like him and be in prison for 27 years and be an actor for 33 years or whatever. I wasn't sitting in these bleachers when I was a young kid thinking the same thing either. It wasn't my goal in life to end up a convict and to end up as a drug addict. I didn't have that goal when I was sitting in school listening to some knucklehead like me and thinking, I want to be like him when I grow up. So you can think what you want. And you talk to any addict, any convict, they didn't have that as a vision and a goal in their life to become that person. It happened because of the choices that they made in life. With me, it started when I was 10. I was super short. I haven't grown a whole lot. And I had buck teeth. I don't have that problem anymore because I lost all my teeth to meth. I got some shiny new ones that I can take in and out whenever I want and impress my children with them. And as a matter of fact, I'm still kind of getting used to them. So if the tops happen to fly out when I'm talking, I know you guys got good reflexes. Catch on for me because they ain't cheap. And my original last name, which was Connect. So between those three things, I had enough. I dealt with the bullying in school. Getting beat down, having patches ripped off my snowmobile suit. I ain't changed much, I still wear patches. And because of that, I acted out. And not only did I get treated like that at school, but my home life wasn't any better. My mom loves me, I love my mom to death, but my dad was a brutal man. Physically abusive, emotionally abusive. When I wasn't getting beat down, and my mom would stick up for me once in a while, my dad would either leave for a week or two at a time, or how many of y'all get the silent treatment? Yeah, I get that. And I didn't know what was worse, getting beat down or living in the same house with my so-called own father acting like I didn't even exist. Oh, and then the whole, you're a loser, you're a nobody, you'll never amount to anything. And because I was acting out at the school, I got the same thing from the teachers. Matter of fact, one time, I don't know, I just never see it in school anymore. Do you guys still climb ropes and touch the ceiling? Well, that's outlawed now. See, we were extremists back in my day. They made us climb these ropes and touch the ceiling. I refused to do it. And the teacher picked me up off the floor by my hair and said, you will grab that rope. See, that's how we got treated in school. We either did what we were told to do, or we paid for it. But I paid for it more than others because of how I acted out. And then my mom and dad my mom forced us to go to church, and I got the same treatment there. So when you're 10 years old, and you don't want to be at home, you don't want to be at school, you don't want to be at church, where do you go? All I know is I just wanted to be accepted like almost every other kid seemed to be accepted. I wanted someone to love me and treat me with respect and talk to me. I didn't want to fear. I didn't want to go to school every day and go home every day and fear. That's how I lived my life. And here comes the first bad choice. One day, I'm from Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire, and I was going to the Hillcrest School when I was young. And the high school was right next to it. And back in the day, there was this tree line between the schools. And one day, I was walking the perimeter out in the schoolyard, because whenever I was out for recreation or gym, whatever you call it nowadays, recreation or lunch, I'd walk the perimeter and hoping nobody would notice me that day and beat me down. And I heard, hey, kid. And I looked, and there were some of the older students smoking cigarettes in the tree line. I walked over there. I'm like, well, it can't hurt as bad as what my dad does. And when I got over there, they handed me a cigarette. I knew what cigarettes were. My dad smoked. I never did before that. I was 10. They started talking to me. I puffed on the cigarette. But they were talking to me. They weren't calling me names. They weren't beating me down. They were talking to me. I'm like, man, this is cool. And then the next day it happened again. And the next day it happened again. And one day I was getting messed with out in the schoolyard, and the kids happened to be over there, and hey, you mess with him, you mess with us. and they stopped. I paid for it on the bus later that day, but then they handled that too. I'm like, man, this is cool. As kids now are talking to me, but they're sticking up for me. And then one day they handed me something that wasn't a cigarette, and they told me to smoke it differently. It was a joint. And I didn't understand what it was, and I don't remember if I liked it or not, but I must have, because I shortly thereafter became a pothead. And these kids were also, and I'm gonna go through some pictures as we go through this, just so you can see visually what my life was too, because I think pictures speak volumes as much as words. But I was they were into some dark stuff, which I didn't understand at the age of 10. I just know I wanted to be part of whatever they were involved with, so I got involved with the dark stuff. And then they turned me on to pornography. And I was 10 years old. I'm like, man, this is cool. And because of the dark stuff they were involved with, they were into cutting for blood and stuff. And I got caught up in that. And the pornography and the cutting and marijuana and the other pills that went along with it all became lifelong addictions. Things I did every day. By the age of 11, when I came back the next year, they had taught me how to steal porn magazines from gas stations. And I was selling pornography magazines at the age of 11 to the kids in the school, and they were giving me enough marijuana to sell, and selling cigarettes, 11 years old. So don't tell me high school or middle schoolers are innocent. By 13, I was well into all this stuff. Back then, speeders were the big thing. You'd get pills a dime a dozen. More like caffeine pills than anything, but still. By the age of 14, I was so far caught up in the things, I was already gone by then. Between the marijuana and the cigarettes and the cutting and self-mutilation and pornography and pills and harder drugs, the hallucinogenics were big back then. I was every day 14 years old. And that's when I started getting arrested. And I don't remember if it was the stupid drug dog that brought me to school one day or my dad who turned me in, but that was my first arrest. From the age of 14 to 18, I spent most all that time incarcerated. Whether it was group homes, foster homes, shelter homes, they ended up running out of places to put me and threw me in between Sacred Heart and Luther Hospital Psychiatric Ward for a year and a half, and eventually I went to Lincoln Hills Boys School. And I didn't mind because I lived out in the country, man, and I couldn't, it's 7 miles away from town. I couldn't make it to town a whole lot. I had to run away from home, which I did a lot when I was at home. But all these places they locked me up when were, number one, co-ed. And number two, I had more access to drugs and girls than I did in these places than I ever would have at home. So I was like, go ahead, lock me up, man. By the time I was 18, I was so far caught up in stuff, my mind was gone. And I hated authority. Boy, did I hate authority. When I turned 18 years old in Eau Claire, I was living in Eau Claire, and the feds came in 1984 and set up 3 sting operations. One for drugs, one for prostitution, and one for a theft ring. And I got caught up in the theft ring. Up to that point, because this is what criminals do, they justify and minimize. Up to that point, I had never stolen anything from people's houses. I just robbed stores and family and friends. But when I saw how easy it was to sell TV sets and boat motors and guns and VCRs and stereo systems, I started burglarizing. By the time we got caught 6 months later, when they busted everybody, 84 people in the sting operation, me and my friend had the most charges. They told us we robbed 250 homes in 6 months. And at that time, if my hatred for authority wasn't bad enough, I thought that they made this criminal. Right? It wasn't my fault I went and did these homes. Up to that point, I never robbed anybody before. Y'all made this person. Oh, my hatred for authority got even worse than it could have. I ended up with 10 years in prison, fresh 18 years old, 10 years in prison. And I did 10 years. Here's the power of addiction. All I ever thought about every single day of that 10 years is I can't wait to get out and hit the pipe. Because by that time, crack cocaine and the hallucinogenics were my drugs of choice. And that's all I could think of every day. can't wait to get out and hit the pipe. I thought about getting out with the girls too, but the pipe was more important. I did 10 years. I got out in 1994, and the first thing I did is went right back to the pipe. 1994 to 1996, I was on the bracelet a couple times, and I cut the bracelet off and took off to another state. Got caught both times. Ended up doing a little bit of time each time in prison, so between 94 and 96, I did some more time. But my mind was slow. The mind I had left was slowly going from the amount of drugs that I was using. And in 1996, I got caught up in a three-way love triangle and went up against this guy who was messing with my girl who was 6'8". He was a Texan dude, and I wasn't going fisticuffs. So I went and stole a gun from my own mother, busted into his house, and shot him point-blank range. You don't mess with me. All that mattered in my life was that badge of honor that I was collecting. And see, all this stemmed from what started out at 10 years old, and I am not blaming the bullying and my dad's abusive behavior and all that. You see, that's where the choices come in. I could have made a choice to make healthier choices rather than go into the stuff. But I made one bad choice, getting with some older kids, smoking a cigarette, that eventually was leading to worse and worse things. And pretty soon, the choices, I wouldn't even have to think about them anymore because of the people I was hanging around with. They just came automatic. That's who I am. Because I ended up getting into that mindset, it gave me enough power in my mind to try to take somebody's life. Because see, even up to that point, everybody in my life that I met had one of two marks above their head. You either had an X or a dollar sign. And if I couldn't use you for that dollar sign, you meant nothing to me. Remember who I stole the gun from to shoot this man? My mom. Didn't matter. All that mattered was me. My reputation. I ended up getting 18 years in prison, 12-year state sentence, 12 years probation. Check this out. All I thought about every single day was I can't wait to get out and hit the pipe. See, those choices got taken away from me because I was an addict. I was a criminal addict, I was a drug addict, I was a porn addict, a cutting addict. I didn't have control of my life no more. I did 10 years. The last 6 years that I sat on that bit, I started pumping iron. The other thing that happened during that time is in the early to mid-2000s is when the meth epidemic started kicking in. And people were starting to get locked up left and right for meth. So some of my roommates, some of my friends in the joint, talking to me about the meth game, talking to me about what it did to them physically and their teeth loss and what it did to their health, and talking about the whole subculture of meth and heroin and all this other stuff. See, I grew up in the 60s, man. Peace, love, rise above, share your last joint with somebody. The subculture that they told me about was, man, they will literally, your friends, your relatives will literally, with a knife, stab you in the back if you accuse them of stealing your stuff. They'd be sitting in the garage, hanging out together and hitting the meth pipe together, and you go in to go to the bathroom and you come back out and your stuff's gone. They'll sit there and help you look for it. And then if you accuse them, they'll stab you. And I'm like, after hearing all this stuff all those years, I'm like, all right, I ain't never gonna touch that. I'll just stick with my crack. When I got out in 2006, I was a 185-pound rock. 6 years of iron. I say that for a reason. Because when I got out of prison, I went right back to the crack pipe. But after a couple months, a concert was coming up. Man, you can't go to a concert without drugs. So I went to my crack dealer to get a bunch of stuff to go to a concert with, and he had gotten busted. So I went to a friend of mine's house, and he's like, man, I don't know anybody who sells that stuff, but I got this, and he handed me a meth pipe, and I'm like, no, I ain't doing that. Find someone for me. A couple days later, so you're talking 4 days without my drug of choice now, and I went back. You find anybody yet? No, but I still got this. Come on, man, it's cheaper, it lasts longer, it's better. And I snagged it up, and I hid it. You ever heard meth called the one-hit wonder? You take one hit and you wonder what happened to the rest of your life if you lived that long. And as soon as I took that first hit, I knew I was gone. Within 3 months, I went from 180 to 150. Within 6 months, I went from 180 to 135 pound skeleton. 3 months, 6 months it took to take 8 years of hard work off my body, 6 years of hard work off my body. It made me into that and worse. This was about 8 months before my arrest. I got worse. During that time, my mind was also going, because meth does some wild stuff to your brain. The paranoia, people following you around, staying awake for days on end. If you don't know the cycle of meth, you're awake anywhere from 2 to 10 or more days and nights in a row. You sleep for a day or two. You're awake anywhere from 2 to 10 or more days and nights in a row. You sleep for a day or two, and over and over and over. And that's how I lived the last 2.5 years of my life before my last arrest. And one day I met this guy named Eric. He's tattooed on my neck. The first time I met Eric was shortly before the shooting in 1996. I was living at the house in the Chippewa County Humane Association while I was working. They knew I was homeless. They took me in. They moved me up with their son, Eric, who was 16 years old. I turned Eric on to marijuana. He became a pothead. When I met him this time, he was 27 years old, and I handed him the meth pipe. And he became a meth fiend immediately. After a time, in November of 2007, his parents and the rest of his family moved to Minnesota from the town we were living in Chippewa. He stayed behind. Why did he stay behind? Because I owned him. And one day we found him a little apartment, threw a little bit he had in there, and went about our business. We were on about a 6-day-a-nighter. That was our average. We were coming down off the meth. I dropped him off at his new apartment. I went back to my house. I laid down and went to sleep. That was Eric on the right. In the morning, I got a phone call from his mom. Hey, Eric is in the Minneapolis burn center and he's not going to live. We put his mattress on the floor a little too close to the heat register. Because of the amount of time we stayed awake and the intensity of what that drug does to your body, when the mattress started on fire, he was already melted into the mattress before he woke up. And he died. But I'm not hurting anybody but myself when I do drugs. Just leave me alone. What a lie. You just heard one instance. I should read a 13-page letter to you that my mom wrote about how I negatively impacted her life to the point where one day she wanted to drive her car off a cliff. My mom! I ain't hurt nobody but myself. Mind your own business. Oh, and another lie that goes along with that, there's no such thing as gateway drugs. Let's talk about that for a second. Because, see, people like I used to have that belief, got that in your mind for one reason, and that's to justify your use. And not only is marijuana a gateway drug, so are cigarettes and vaping and juuling and alcohol. Disagree with me? Most of you guys sat down, and most of you in here know a drug addict. Go to that drug addict. Ask them how it started. I guarantee you they didn't pick up a heroin needle one day and start shooting themselves. Started with a cigarette like me and hang around with the wrong crowd and making them stupid choices. Because once you make them, like I said in the beginning, it's real easy to make the other ones. You don't pick up a crack pipe one day and start deciding to be a crackhead. Things are changing now with the meth And with prescription drugs, you don't have to have a gateway drug into that. That's gateway itself. And see, here's part of the problem. Remember I said Eric stayed back because I owned him? There's a lot of old me's around, if you haven't realized. And I owned a lot of people. I controlled a lot of people. So you all have this other lie mindset that I can go to parties and hang out with my friends, but I'm not going to do the drugs and the alcohol. There's another lie. Especially with your older kids. Because see, some of these young girls that go to school that I own, that are my customers and will do anything for that next hit, you go ahead and go off to a party with one of your friends with the mindset you're not going to drink or smoke dope or anything. And you're sitting down on the couch just hanging out with your pals, and two of my girls come in and sit at either side of you. Well, they're hot. And they start talking to you real nice and rubbing up on you. And pretty soon they hand you a pipe of marijuana. No biggie, just take a hit. You're probably not going to refuse it. Straight up. And guess what? What you don't know is there's methamphetamine in that marijuana. And 99% of people who take that first hit, guess what? I got a new dollar sign, brother. That's the reality of today. That's the reality of today. Whether it's drug users or those who are involved with the sex trafficking. Did you see the article about the teacher who got arrested for trafficking, finding kids in their school to traffic? This is a reality. People want you. They see you as customers. Speaking from experience, man, and I'm trying to give you a warning. There's a lot of old Brian Coles, Aussies as I was known. There's a lot of Aussies out there that see you as potential dollar signs. After that happened with Eric, I just didn't want to live anymore. Spent 27 years in prison. It's really all I knew. And the only time I really even tried to deal with reality on the streets is I had to be drugged up. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I was done with life. In all those years I had built up that big old badge of honor and thought I was this big courageous dude. But I didn't have the courage to take my own life. And I wanted to do that more than anything. I wanted to be all over with. So I attempted to take myself out by overdose. And just started using so many drugs I would just die. During that period of 2007, 2009, I met Marcia. All Marcia was to me during that time, we got together for one reason: sex. Both of us. She was already a miracle. She was a pancreatic cancer survivor. She was like 26 years old or something like that. I was in my 40s. I saw it as a trophy. Woohoo! 20 years younger. Another notch on the belt. Plus, she came out of pancreatic cancer surgery, and when I went into her bedroom one day and opened up her drawer, she had tons of pills, oxys, and all kinds of. I'm like, woo! Double bonus. Young girl, pills. Up to that point, Marcia was only smoking dope. I got her starting to snort pills. Never had marriage in mind ever, but we ended up getting married 2 weeks later. And then one day, she got on me about my meth use. Well, don't you think you're using it a little too much? And all that was going through my mind is, you hypocrite. You're sitting here putting pills up your nose, and you're telling me I got a drug problem? Guess what I did? I started cutting methamphetamine in the pills, and she became a meth addict. Whether you were my mother, and I stole the gun to shoot somebody, or you were my own wife, and you didn't agree with my lifestyle, again, $X. Didn't care who you were. She got on me one day and said something about, because of my cutting of self-mutilation, she said, well, since you met me, you haven't been cutting yourself as much. And I distinctly remember telling my own wife, that don't mean nothing. Just because I'm with you doesn't mean it's getting better. I'm just trying other methods, more serious now, to take myself out. And I almost succeeded 3 times before my last arrest in 2009. I was selling so much marijuana to support my drug habit. We were running a drug house. And she had a 6-year-old autistic boy named Lance. And we ended up getting arrested. January 6th, last Sunday, I celebrated my 10th year of my final arrest. 10 years now without an arrest. Man, I ain't never went a couple of years without an arrest. That was huge to me. 10 years. So I'm sitting in jail, 44 years old. Look at that badge of honor. That's what I lived for. Do you know the population of Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire? Almost 500,000 people. And I was the biggest drug dealer. That is what my life was about. Notoriety, status. And you could probably say the same for most of you in here. Your little status. Thinking you're hot shots, or you're the best looker, or you're the one that's bringing the stuff in for everybody else, because that somehow matters to you. Makes you look like someone that other people look up to. Well, I lived for the same thing. Look what it got me. 44 years old. I already had 6 years of parole, 12 years of probation, and 12-year state sentence hanging over my head before all these new charges they gave me. I was looking to spend the rest of my life in prison. And it wasn't until I sat a few days and the drugs cleared from my mind that 2 things came to me. Number 1, I'm married. And number 2, and there was a 6-year-old autistic child in the picture. I had no clue. He wasn't the X or the dollar sign. He meant nothing to me. I didn't even understand that he existed in this picture. And that was my moment where I came to myself. And I said, I can't do this no more. And something within the next 3 weeks, something radical happened in that county jail that completely transformed my life. And I can't talk about it here. But I challenge you guys to come to this outreach event that we're having tonight at Harvest Time Church in Mondovi. It's open to the public, and I'm able to share the rest of the story there. But let me tell you one thing. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's possible for somebody living a lifestyle of crime and drugs for 33 years to wake up one day and just say, from here on in, I'm just going to be a good guy? You think it's possible? Anybody? Seriously? You think it's possible? What grade are you in? You got a lot to learn, man. I'm sorry, I'm just a bold guy. I tell it like it is. No, that doesn't happen. Come today and learn what happened. I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be a good guy. I didn't wake up one day and decide that kids, and I ain't saying that in a disrespectful way, youth, are my life. And I want to use what happened to me to give you a warning. If you see me coming out of a building, you don't see smoke, you don't see a fire, but you see me coming out, man, and I got singed hair. I ain't got a lot, but it's singed. I got burn marks and soot all over my body, and I'm breathing hard, and my clothes are partially burnt, and I'm telling you, don't go up in there, it's on fire. You saw my burn marks, you saw my singed hair, my body is scarred. I've been shot, I've been stabbed. Don't go in there. It could take your life. So I want my past to be used for you guys' good. And give you that warning, man. Don't do it. It ain't worth it. You want to be cool? You want to be the man? Some of the things that I hear are going on up in here, that ain't the way to do it. That ain't cool. What's cool is me in here trying to help you guys. That's cool. What's cool is when someone sees some bullying going on in the hallway, you walk up and say, just knock it off, man. Come on, bro. That's cool. Let me just tell you a little bit before I get into the final message about what's happened since 2009. That person who spent 27 years in prison and lived a life of darkness for 33 years. I've been a youth pastor, an outreach pastor, an associate pastor at a church in Stanley, Wisconsin for 4.5 years. I was given a motorcycle just a few months out of prison, and right away I joined the motorcycle ministry, and I go out and I minister to the one percenter clubs out here, the Outlaws and the Backflat Pistons and all the other ones. I got put back in prison. Not even 2 years out of prison, and I get sent back in. And I do jail and prison ministry. And I go in and I talk to the very guys who knew me best. And tell them there's a better way. You can't make it out here. There is. There is hope. See, I used to be a dope dealer, but now I'm a hope dealer. And this stuff I got's free. And it's better, it'll give you a better high than any other drug in the world. Because there's not enough hope in the world today. There's way too much hopelessness. 2 years ago in August, I was given a pastorate up in Drummond, Wisconsin. I've been a senior pastor of a church up in Drummond, Wisconsin for 2 years now. And I can tell you this much. After working with kids for 4.5 years and working with adults for 2 years, I much prefer working with students. That's straight up. At least your drama is known. Adult drama is confusing to me. And I'm also part of Crossroads Outreach in Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm the director of Addictions Transformation. And I work with drug addicts and convicts and going to the jails. And I work with the families of addicts because, remember, like I said, we have this mindset that we ain't hurt nobody but ourselves. Let me tell you something. The average, you hurt 12 people around you when you're on drugs and alcohol. So we have a whole lot more family that we're working with than the addict themselves. The best part of my life outside of my 4 motorcycles is my family. See, my father died 2 years ago. But shortly after I was out, my dad, I've been doing the speaking stuff for over 8 years now. My dad saw the things that I was doing, and he said something to me one day. He said, son, I love you. I'm proud of you. And he gave me a hug. I was 45 years old, 46 years old, my dad told me that. I hadn't heard those words out of my dad's mouth for 46 years. I never heard that before. So he died, it was all good. I forgave him. And my mom, our relationship was restored. Me and my mom's best friends now. She's still alive and kicking. She's so proud of her son. But my wife, she was in the process of divorcing me. Because after the kid got taken away, we know what happens. Social services comes in and says, sign this, no contact, or you'll never see your child again. So my wife had no idea of the transformation that was happening to me in jail and prison. All I know is when I got out and went to her door at Dad's house, she says, I filed for divorce. But I'm not that guy anymore. Girls should hear that a lot in your life. But I really wasn't that guy anymore. And that relationship not only got transformed, but here's the biggest blessing. Is that going to come up? Is the IT guy still here? Because I don't know nothing about this stuff. Anybody that knows about this stuff? We get this picture up. I want to show what the biggest blessing of it all in my life is. And like I said, it must be a big blessing because it ain't my 4 motorcycles. That.
Oops, sorry.
Not only, oh man, what happened? See, you're like me, you fix something, then it goes back there. See, this was the 6-year-old autistic boy, Lance, who's my stepson. He just turned 16 2 days ago, and he's autistic. See, some of you in here got a problem messing with people with disabilities. And all I'm going to say about that is let me catch you messing with my boy one time. But these two, Dylan, who's 6 now, and Isaiah, who's 3, that is a blessing. That is what I live for. And this is the things that we tend to forget when we become addicts. I got so many addicts that I work with, and they'll sit there, especially the women. It almost seems like one of the prerequisites to becoming a meth addict is to have children. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You see the articles, you see the TV things. These children are caught up in the middle of all this, and they'll sit in the chair and tell me to my face, oh man, but my kids are my life, but yeah, I just can't quit doing this. I'm like, you just said what to me? What did you just say? Well, my kids are my life. I said, man, you are a liar. If your kids were your life, you wouldn't be smoking meth. I look at my children almost every day and I think to myself, there's no way I could do that to my children. But I didn't think twice about it when Lance was around because I was caught up in the game. I had some pictures up there before because I ain't going to ask you to get that back now. Oh, there it is. Can we get it back? Yeah. There we go. So there's these pictures. I just want to show a couple real quick because I want to give you some prime examples of thinking that you can still go to parties or hang out with people that are involved with drugs and alcohol and all this other stupid stuff, but it's cool, right? And not be affected. You see, remember the guy I told you about that handed me the meth pipe, my friend? In the last 4 years now, he's been in a mental institution because, well, when he first went in, I heard he thought that he was Elvis Presley, but now he thinks he's a Hawaiian. He doesn't own his mind anymore. And this guy here, Andy Mack, holla back. Andy come from Milwaukee. He was one of my cellies. He was the coolest cellie I ever had in all the 27 years I sat in prison. He come from Milwaukee. So we had that ghetto talk. And we have a certain word for those kind of white boys in prison. But Andy was one of the coolest dudes I ever knew, man. And see, Andy was young. He was probably 22 when he got arrested. And he had a 25-year bit. You know what he did? You see, Andy didn't smoke dope and he didn't drink. He just loved hanging with his homies. And he was at a party one day with his homies. And they ran out of beer, so they had him go to the gas station and pick up some 40 ounces for him. And while he was back by the coolers, because of who he was, and the drooping pants, bagging, a guy comes in who's also drunk at the other end of the gas station and starts messing with him and calling them names. And Andy twice told him to shut up, and the guy kept going with it. So Andy chucked a 40 ounce across the gas station with him, hit him in the forehead and killed him. 25 years in prison. Mawa, another one of my roommates. When I first got out of prison in 2006, started working at Countertops Incorporated in Eau Claire, which was a subsidiary or whatever you call it of Menards. We built countertops. And I'm working there for a couple months, and all of a sudden one day Mawa walks in. I'm like, Mawa? What's up? Oh, I'm working here now. So sweet. I spent so many years with this guy in the same room. He's fresh out of prison, and he was doing really good. Said, I'm not doing that stuff no more. I'm not going to bang no more. None of that. And within a few months, a couple of his guys came up that he used to hang with in lacrosse. And he got back with the crowd, got back with the banging. And him and one of his guys was in a car making a dope deal, which went bad, and they stabbed this guy to death. And Mao is now spending the rest of his life in prison. But he had every intention in the world of doing good. I had a guy when I was living in Eau Claire, went to a party on Water Street. Good friend too, man. Didn't smoke nothing, didn't drink, but loved being around his friends. And it was college town. He went to a party. When everybody was passed out about 3 in the morning, he decided to go home. He got into his truck, went to back up and heard a crunch. Got out of the truck, and he was one of the guys in the party who had passed out behind the wheels of his vehicle. So think what you want about hanging out with people that are involved with that stuff and think you can come out the other end shining. The minute you walk into any situation like that, there's always a good possibility something is going to happen. So I just want to talk to you about a few things. I do want to leave a little bit of time. If I leave a little bit of time for questions, will you guys ask some questions? Okay. Because some schools don't, man. They suddenly get shy. I don't know why that's not reality. So first of all, I just want to talk to you a minute about bullying. Y'all hear about that 13-year-old boy that just took life in Eau Claire? Yeah. Does that happen? What's that? Yeah. Has it happened around here yet? Yeah. If it ain't, it will. If y'all keep up doing what you're doing. But let me give you a dose of reality. Everybody in here knows that kids as young as 8 years old are committing suicide from being bullied, right? There's not anybody that doesn't know that. So in my opinion, when you bully people, you're committing premeditated murder. Anybody think I'm wrong? Yeah, you're not going to raise your hand because the ones that are doing that, the knuckleheads that are doing that, ain't going to admit to it. If you know it kills people and you're still doing it, you're a murderer. If you know it kills people, why are you doing it? You want them to die? How would you like to live the rest of your life if that person or people that you're messing with actually do that? Live life with that, bud. You gotta rather do prison time than live with that on my head at your age. But again, maybe you don't even, maybe you're so far gone like I was by your age that it doesn't even concern you anymore. And if you're in that spot in your life, man, please get help. Because in no time, that'll completely get taken from you, that conscience that you might have left. Y'all think this stuff is a game? some of the things that I read or listened to on my way here about what's going on here, and some of the things I heard about what's going on here. Let me tell you something, man. All you people in here, you think you're above something, you ain't above nothing. I'll throw some of you to the real deal. And we'll see how that goes. And again, I could care less about what anybody thinks about me, but I'm telling you like it is, because I care about you. And I don't want to see you go down that path. Again, I woke up this morning just overjoyed. I couldn't sleep last night because of someone I didn't even know got found. Because she was a human being. Just like you. And when you start treating each other like that, life's going to be a lot better, man. You guys spend more time in school than you do with your own families. So 18 years or more in school, man. More time than with your family. And let me tell you something. When you go into a prison or a treatment facility, someone who's had everything ripped away from their life and lost everything, you know what becomes important to them? Who was the one that didn't agree with me on that question? Is that? Yeah, you. What's the most important thing to you right now? Your family. Oh, well, hey, you got a good answer that time, so I'll scratch out that negative thing. What's the most important thing to you? Yeah.
My family.
Your family? Man, you would believe the amount of schools I go into, and I get my happiness. Because then I got to go this route where, I always say that teenagers and drug addicts have one thing in common. And I get a lot of flack from this, but it's true. Anybody think about what that is? What do teenagers and drug addicts have in common? Selfishness. Tell me I'm wrong. Yeah. All you think about is you, man. What you want, where you want to go. But when you get everything taken away from you in life, when you take away all the banging and all the juuling and vaping and drugs and crime, and it gets ripped out from under you and you go to jail or prison or treatment, now people matter. Because when it comes down to it, that's the only important thing in your life, is people, especially your family. And wouldn't you consider really kind of each other family because you spend more time with each other than you do in your own home? What would it look like if we all in here had the mindset of Jamie Kloss and how important she is and how elated a lot of us even in here, where I heard there were some friends of hers even in here, how elated you were when you heard that news. What if you thought that about each other, man? What if you actually, here's a novel idea, were excited about coming to school every day? Go ahead, you can laugh now. Yeah, real funny, Brian. Man, well, I say I ain't no jokester. I'm serious. What if you looked forward to coming to school? What if you saw every human being in life? Because remember that guy that you were seeing them pictures of, the before me, the BC? When you see people like that, what do you think? You know what that is? You don't? That's a rock, man. Come on. It's a rock. It's an ugly rock. And see, maybe some of you even saw that in me when I walked in here today and didn't know about me. When you look at guys like the old me, maybe that's what you see, the ugliness. Maybe when you walk by a homeless person or somebody staggering out of the bar or some guy who's tweaking up at the gas station. Or maybe a whole bunch of people in your own school who you don't like, or they're different than you, so you mess with them, and this is how you see them. Maybe this is how you see some of your teachers. Especially that guy that pulled me up off the floor by my hair. But this is how we view people different than us. Some of us. To the point where we start messing with them because they're different than us. I got to get on you. Thank you. Because they're different than us. Let me tell you something, man. There's only 3 reasons why people bully. Can you guess what they are? What's that? Because they're different than you are, and somehow you think you're better than they are. Number 2, you're trying to impress your friends. Or number 4, you got some serious stuff going in your own life, and that's your way of acting out. And you take it out on other people. Here's a reality check. Every single one of us were born different and unique for a reason. Did you know that? Did you know we were born not to be like each other? Did you know that we should be celebrating our differences? Because let me tell you something, if my wife was anything like me, I would not be with her. You were born unique. You were born different. We need to celebrate that, not mess with people about it. My 16-year-old stepson, Lance, who's autistic, every day I tell him how proud I am of him because he's the one boy that I ain't got to worry about in our house that's going to always be innocent and be a good person. And I celebrate that. I celebrate his differences, even if he is hard to understand sometimes. I love him more because of it. But you see, we have a tendency to look at other people like this. And let me tell you something. That's a geode. And this is what each and every person on the face of this earth that ever was, is, and will be, truly is on the inside. You're a masterpiece. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. You're unique. You are more loved and valued than you will ever know. But see, sometimes we hear the ugliness so much. We hear all this. You're a loser. You're nobody. You're nothing. You're ugly. You're 4 eyes. You're fat. You're different than me and I don't like you. And we hear that so much. Remember the old, you're a loser, you're nothing, you're nobody, you're never going to amount to anything. At 10 years old, I heard it so much by so many people that defined the next 33 years of my life. And I became that loser. And I forgot who I was created to be. I forgot who I was. I forgot my uniqueness. I forgot I was me. And I became something I wasn't because I heard that. So even if you're not literally killing somebody, when you're messing with somebody, you're potentially taking that away from them. So if you haven't learned this reality check either by now, I'm going to give it to you. No matter what clique you're part of in life, you're going to get messed with. Doesn't matter if you're in the cheerleader clique, the jock clique, the druggie clique, you're going to get messed with. So why not get messed with for the person that you are, that you were created to be, and that you want to be in the future, other than letting these knuckleheads knock you down and make you somebody that you're not? What would it look like if you understood that and loved each other just like a human being, just because you're a human being? And you, instead of knocking people down and messing with people, you walk up into school, and what's your name? What's your name? Ben. What's your name? Lakin? Lakin sees Ben when he walks in school Monday morning. It's Ben. Hey, what's up? Hey man, you're a masterpiece. Well, thank you, so are you. It's funny, ain't it? Because we don't hear that kind of stuff. We don't even hear that stuff from our own families. But what would it look like if we treated each other like that in our schools, man? 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And you ain't got to know each other. Did you know that? Lakin, do you know her? What's your name? Do you know Maddie?
Yeah.
What's your name? Oh, wait, I'm talking to the same grade. What's your name? Oh, you're Maddie. Maddie, meet Maddie. Do you know Maddie, Lakin? Okay. Now, what would that look like if you walked in school one day? Maddie, you in any kind of social clubs or band or anything? You're in band?
Choir.
You're in choir. So do you guys do like things for public to come in, listen to you sing? Okay. So you happen to be at the school that day, brother, and you hear her sing, and you're like, man, she got a voice. And you walk in the next morning, hey, Maddie. Yeah. Man, you put on an awesome performance last night. Well, thank you. What would that look like? What would it look like if you walked in school and you had a sticky note on your locker saying, you know what? You are respected and appreciated. Thank you for being you. How many in here, you don't have to admit, how many in here have been bullied? How many in here are bullies? Be up front. Are bullies or have been bullies? Because the people that you bully know better. Doesn't matter to me. How many people in here have seen bullying going on? Whether it's in here, on social media, whatever it is. How many in here have seen bullying going on in the school? You've witnessed it, you see it, and you didn't do nothing about it. Guess what? You're just as guilty as the bully. You're in the same category. If you don't do nothing about it and you don't say nothing about it, guess what? Maybe a teacher won't listen to you. But if you got 5, 10 people coming into the principal's office and saying, hey, I saw this happening, they're going to do something about it. And they're going to hold that individual accountable. It's just like on the streets, man. We think, oh, they don't never do nothing about the drug addict, so I even say nothing. Call me a snitch, call me what you want. But if you see individuals out here dealing drugs or doing whatever, and you call the hotline or you tell the police and they don't do nothing about it, same thing, right? But you get 5, 10, 15 people saying the same thing, they're going to look at that. Be responsible, be respectful. Care and love about the other person, man. Say something about it. Every one of us is this. But yet, we knock people to the ground with our words and our actions, and we kick them while they're down. Guess what? I was that guy. I was that guy you were kicking around. I was that guy you were pushing around. And these people, me, are our mothers and our fathers. They're our brothers and our sisters. They're our husbands and our wives. And it ain't for you to look down on anybody. Instead of mocking people and pointing fingers and thinking you're better than somebody else, why don't you use that hand that you were pointing fingers at with and help lift them up? And use them feet that you were using to kick them with when they were down to help walk them toward the light. Is that so hard? Because ain't nobody in here better than anybody else. Ain't anybody in here any better or worse than I was or is. See, I played Dungeons and Dragons for a lot of years. It was in a form of escapism for me, so I don't have to deal with reality while I was in prison. One of the things I played was cyberpunk. Anybody familiar with cyberpunk? Yeah, or anybody like me, a lover of science fiction? Where in the future that they could possibly jack into your neck, man, and download your thoughts and see the things you've done and thought about and all that. What if everybody got jacked into in here today? And we looked at the last 2 weeks of your thought life. Where would you stand compared to everybody else? Probably on an even stage, right? I'm going to leave the next 10 minutes open for questions, man. I appreciate all your attention. And I got some stuff down here, too, if anybody wants to come down and talk with me for a minute or whatever. I don't just come into places and say what I say and leave. I am on social media. If you get on Facebook and look up Brian Cole, motivational speaker, I don't consider myself that, but you had to either choose that or public figure. I don't know which one was worse. So if you get on Brian Cole, motivational speaker, and like the page and follow, you can message me on there if you need to talk. I know sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody that you don't know about your problems that ain't going to say nothing to nobody than it is to somebody else. So me and my wife are always there if you need to talk to somebody about something. Been there, done that. I may not understand what you're going through, and sometimes I don't even need to talk back. Maybe all you need is just a vent, and I know the value of venting. It's kept me out of prison. Use me for a vent. You can also get on my YouTube channel. If you look on Brian Cole Testimony, I have a YouTube channel, and I have a whole bunch of little 5-10 minute things for youth, and a lot of other things too. And I also have a website. If you get on Set Us Free, www.setusfree.org, you can get on my website. But if you want to talk real quick before you leave, please do. And I got some stuff for those who want some stuff. Does anybody have any questions? I saw that hand first. Hold on. You can make me run, dude? The only thing I run to is my bike. Oh, my kids.
Who's your favorite child?
Who are you going to put me there? You ain't my wife. Get me in trouble. They all my favorite for different reasons. I will tell you this, because I've just shared a bunch of my past, but I want to share my mind a little bit, the way it works now. Don't get scared. Lance is Lance, man, and you'll always be Lance. But these two, my boys, when Dylan came, the first one, he's 6 now, when he came, if you know anything about babies being colic, he was intensely colic for a year and a half. I didn't spend much of that time at home. I had so much respect for my wife because I couldn't do it. Spent a lot of time away from home. And I did a whole lot of other things too, like a lot of talking to other things. Plus, he never wanted nothing to do with me. Every time I picked him up, he'd cry even louder. I think the whole first year and a half of his life, he only let me hold on to him probably a dozen times. Never slept up on me or fall asleep or any of that kind of stuff. And I desired that more than anything. I wanted my child to love me. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to sleep with him. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be dad, but I wasn't. And I'm like, no more kids. We're done. And my wife always wanted 3, and I'm like, we're done with 2. We're good. My wife is 20 years younger than me, and she was evidently very fertile and still works. I thought I was too old to have kids. I'm 53. And so I was done. So after a couple more months, I found out she was pregnant again. I did a little head scratching. I'm like, oh boy. But that little boy there, he was the biggest blessing in my life. He was not colic, and I didn't know what it meant not to be colic. So the first 3 months, I tripped every day. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Nothing. He's just a normal baby. He knows nothing. Something's wrong. He's not crying. He's quiet. And he's been daddy's boy since day one. So for their own reasons, each of those boys have a place in my heart, and they all have equal love in different ways. Dylan's got daddy's mind, not my old mind, my new one. You see, I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me, and he got all the artistic talent in life. I had the mind for it. I devised 13 different worlds and Dungeons and Dragons, and could put people through stuff for months and months and months at a time without any books, any paperwork. I could devise that. I could devise pictures. I could visually tell you about something and make you see it. But my brother could draw it, paint it, burn it, do skid marks and make pictures, whatever it was. He had that much talent. But my boy, that 6-year-old, he has got a mind on him of imagination that is way beyond my understanding. I'm like, all I can do is just sit look at him with my mouth open like, dude, you're 6, where are you coming up with that? So I love all these boys equally in different ways, right? So you didn't hook me up, because my wife will probably watch this. Question? Yes? Which of my motorcycles is my favorite? Again, you're asking a question, man, that I can't answer. They're all equally, you see, we have 4. I just bought one for my wife for a 10 years together, 10-year anniversary in this last July. That's from a divorce, so obviously the divorce didn't happen. We had kids. I bought her a motorcycle because she loves riding with me, but she wanted to get her face in the air too. But this is my new one, although last year that completely got repainted. It's got custom paint on it. That was a gift that people bought for me because my Harley kept breaking down. People got together and bought me that 2009 Yamaha Royal Star Tour Deluxe with all the features on it. Cruise control, I'll never go back. But my very first bike was this little rat rod. It used to be a 1985 Yamaha Virago. I call it my Yamahog, because it doesn't look like a Yamaha Virago anymore. It's all ratted out. But it's just a little bike, and it's real low, and it's a 700, and it's got a little solo seat, a saddle seat on it. So anything longer than 100, 150 miles, man, it's like, oh. So long trips on that, now that I have this Cadillac, are hard. And then my Harley, it was good before it kept breaking down all the time. Obviously love my Harley a lot. Harley's a unique bike. It's just very expensive to get them fixed when they break down, and they always do. So another question from the older ones? Yeah. Why did I change my last name? Good question. I changed my last name because when I met my wife and we got married, I was deep in the mess, and see, my last name Connect already had a bad history with my uncles and my brother and some other people. So when I got married, I saw this as my opportunity to get my last name changed to try and get the cops off my back a little bit. So I did it for a bad reason, but it ended up being a good reason. So, another question. Yes? What's that? My wife got Lance back because, you know, when they first took him, she had to meet a whole lot of requirements. She had to get urine tests every couple days a week, and had to go through all these different programs. And once she did that for a certain amount of months, then she got her child back. So, and by the way, I just want to say that the Social Service or Human Services Department that took that away, they hated me, man. they hated me, and you know, I'm sure they didn't look very kindly at my wife because of what we did to that child. And they did some pretty devious stuff to me and said a lot of devious things about me. But fast forward a few years later, when I was living in Stanley, a couple of years into that, so this is probably about 6 years or so after being out, they came over to our house. We had a kid that we had taken out of the house because the grandparent who was watching them was an addict, and we ended up bringing him to the hospital because he was suicidal. And they had a 10-year-old boy that he was had custody over or whatever that he was watching, so we took him into our house. We found out there was things going on in the house, so Human Services got involved. And that one of the very same women who messed with me and took the kid away from us was dealing with that. And she had been following me those 6 years and seeing the things that were going on. And that woman offered us to foster that kid. So, yes. What's that? How did I choose it? It's my wife's last name. Yep, Marcia Cole. That's why I took her. 20 after, right? All right, so again, www.setusfree.org. Look at me up on Facebook and you'll see our picture in here. I'm Ryan Cole, motivational speaker. Thank you all for your attention. And like I say, if you all want to talk, call me. And let me remind you one more time, tonight, remember what time?
What time is it?
Is it 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock? Do you know? You don't know either? 7 o'clock at Harvest Time Church up by Dollar General to hear the rest of the story. And I can get a little more open with stuff. Please come tonight. If you come, I'll give you a gift. Yes.
Hey, another round of appreciation for Brian for sharing his story. Quick question for students. Do you have things yet in 7th period that you need to go get? Any yeses in there? Okay, so what we're going to do, just because of logistics right now and it's so close to the end of the day, report back to your 7th period class right now. 7th period class.